Suji, you're like becoming a doctor, so like, what are you eating? Just like Starbucks and cocaine or something, or what?
No, it's like Dunkin' Donuts.
A lot of the options that we used for surgery, a lot of the decisions that were made were profit driven.
Women.
He's trying to be careful here. Come on, first word, rapid fire.
Does it count as a word?
He's stuttering.
Fire.
All right, that counts.
When they come over here as illegal immigrants, they're escaping life that's so much worse. Be accepting to everyone and like forget about that whole illegal bullshit.
I absolutely sympathize with this idea that for the entire time you're applying and you're going through the process of receiving a permanent resident card or a visa, you go to bed at night and you think at 6 a.m. I might get someone knocking at my door and kicking me out of here, you know?
Global warming, is it real or is it a hoax? With stressing your mental health through it all, G.
Alcohol?
Welcome back to Side by Side Podcast. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Dimari.
And we're here to engage in meaningful conversations in hopes to create unity through diversity by enlightening minds, one question at a time. We do that by bringing on two strangers each week to show we have a lot more in common than meets the eye. Today we have two amazing guests. We have Sujit Johnston and Giorgio Guidi. Say hello, guys.
Hello,
Hi, everyone.
Very excited to talk to you guys today. This is technically our new season. We're getting started here, season 2.
Yeah.
You guys are officially the 11th episode. So we did a nice short first season of 10 episodes and been having fun. So here we are back again. So we're going to change things up a little bit this time around. So we're going to kick it off with a little rapid fire round. We're going to do a little word association to get to know your guys' minds a little bit and see where the conversation goes today. Sound good?
Let's do it.
All right.
You want to start off with G?
Yeah. All right, so Giorgio. All right, just no thinking, just in the flow. First word comes to mind. I might stop you, though, if it's interesting enough. All right, so
first word that comes to mind.
Food.
Liquor.
All right, color.
Blue.
All right. Elon Musk.
Space.
All right. Women.
Oof.
He's trying to be careful here. Come on, first word, rapid fire.
Does that count as a word?
What do you say?
He's stuttering.
Fire.
All right, that counts. We'll take it.
That literally says it all, actually.
Yeah.
Last one. Sports.
All of them.
All of them.
Are you a big sports fan or no?
Not at all.
No.
Not all of them. Don't care about any of them.
All right, Dimari, you got Sujit.
You got Sujit, man. Sujit.
Yes, sir.
Chicago.
Bulls.
Roti.
Delicious.
Joe Biden.
Cynical.
Stranger Things.
Who cares?
And lastly, big butts.
Delicious.
I say cannot lie.
That's good stuff, man. I feel like the most interesting. So, Joe Biden's cynical. Why, man?
Okay, that just came out of my head. I think he could have been doing a better job with how he's running everything, and I feel like he's just mainly a puppet. And nothing against him, great guy, but I'm just not happy with how things are going right now. And we kind of all saw this happening. That's all I can really say.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
You don't have to say he's a good guy.
I mean, he might be a good. I don't know, man.
I don't know.
He's a good sniffer.
He does sniff.
He does sniff a lot. What do you think, G?
He wears shades a lot. I like the shades.
Is different or sniper?
What'd you say?
Did you say sniper?
Sniffer. He might hire snipers. Yeah, he likes to sniff kids or something. I guess that's his thing.
What do I think? Well,
come on, man.
I mean, listen, Joe Biden or not Joe Biden, I think that a lot of us, whether we are part of one party or the other one, or no parties at all, whether we come from this country or not, like, everybody sees a lack of something over there, right? You know, whether if it's a lack of emotional presence, a lack of fire, right?
Yeah.
Being like, hey, let's take these things and fix it, you know, my own way, right? And it's the wrong way, but I'm trying to do something and I'm showing that I'm doing it, you know?
Yeah.
Instead, it kind of feels like the generic feel that I think everybody shares, whether they like Joe Biden or not, is that we're a stall, you know?
Mm.
And we're like, you know, sometimes when you're a little kid and your parents are stopping traffic and the little kids start freaking out because, you know, as the car goes, you feel okay, you know, whether you're like into a place you care about, whether you want to be in the car or not, it's kind of comfortable enough. Mm-hmm. But if you stay still in traffic, you start feeling like, yo, what's going on? Hey, can we guys move, you know?
Right, yeah, a lot of stagnation.
You know,
I think it's gotten to the point where I think people are like, well, maybe we're moving the car in reverse now. Seems like we're moving backwards.
Well,
seems like
there's a lot of things happening in the world that are certainly, I don't know, they're not a question that we can solve with an idea. There's a lot of work to do, and we gotta see who's willing to put in the work. That's it.
Well,
you know.
One thing that you said that I think is interesting, Giorgio, is like everyone in the U.S., especially, regardless of their socioeconomic status, is suffering these consequences. So it kind of, in a way, brings us together that we're all going through a pandemic, these prices, the inflation and everything. So although it might affect some groups more than others, kind of brings us together in some form, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, is it going to be a revolution? And are the people going to change things the way they, and is it going to get bad before it gets better?
Historically, we've never seen a revolution without bloodshed, so it'll be frightening. But let's shift gears a little bit, man. So, Giorgio, just, you know, walk us through your upbringing. You know, you got a nice little accent going there, so let's tell the people, like, you know, where you grew up, family structure, what you're doing professionally, and how you got there. And, you know, you could take as much time as you need to get it across.
Yeah, of course. Well, I was born in Italy, in northern Italy, an hour outside Milano, towards the Alps area. There's a smaller town named Brescia. Many people know about it, but most of the world doesn't. So I think Milano is the better point of reference for a generic area.
Yeah.
For understanding where, at least. I grew up there. My parents, they were together, and they stayed together until my father passed a few years ago. We were 4 siblings, 3 boys and 1 girl. I was the youngest one. My father he did a lot of things. I mean, he was born before World War II, so, you know, he spent his childhood through World War II, and he was a young man when the boom started, right? So it was a completely different world, and I've heard many stories about how things were dealt with and how things developed over these years, which is definitely very different than what's happening with our generation. And I think, you know, living in the house with someone who's been through that was very important and informative. And he started working very young, of course, like everybody in that generation did, more or less. So he started working in a factory that eventually that factory became Fiat, right? Which everybody knows.
Yeah.
And they were doing design and engineering of trucks, and those were the years where labor went from being a few people building something by hand to a completely mechanized, engineered world, right?
Yeah.
So as he worked his way up over the years, he learned how to be a draftsman, and kept studying music on the side because, again, grew up in poverty. And I'll make it a little bit long about my father's life because it makes sense with all the things that I'm going to say later about myself.
Sure, it's fine.
Yeah.
And because of, especially in Italy, the presence of the church is a very big presence, and it's very different than in the United States. In the United States, faith and religion are more of a cultural and personal thing, whereas their religion, the Catholic Church especially up to our generation when we were kids, was more of like a state presence almost. Like you would never think that like the church has the same or more important than the government, you might not know who the mayor of your town is, but personally, the priest and all these other figures working, and they would actively be engaged in the community, like in the school, in everything else. And since everything is business of small communities, all this will make sense. Anyway, for my father, growing up was like, especially in the years of the war, was the place to go eat, to go have a warm meal, to get some help and education, and figure out studying music and chanting in the choir, that the best kid would get like a free vacation in the summer. So learn music. Eventually, when he was in his 30s, already married and already with a couple of kids, my older siblings decided to leave all of the world of industrial. We can call it like some primordials of industrial design, if you want to put it that way, and decided to only dedicate himself to music. Over the years, he played with several orchestras and then eventually opened his own school. And so when I was born, he was already in his late 40s. And I grew up studying music, but also studying design and engineering because it's something I saw in my house growing up. So everything was basically custom built. And I've learned from him like the passion of drawing and the passion for the arts, basically, right? Yeah. So these two things define my entire life. So I studied arts and design, and I find myself 20 years ago, more or less, starting to work in a design firm as a draftsman, right? Which was a very, very similar path. After studying art, of course. I moved here when I came here when I was 29. I didn't move here when I was 29. I came here when I was 29 for an artist residency, and just because I won a grant to have a studio from the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council. It was 2012, yes. I fell in love, and young souls fall in love and decide to do crazy things like getting married and start traveling through the world together and blah blah. It was this like intense few years of my life where I moved back to Europe and I lived with my ex-partner and moved back to the States. Eventually moved to Las Vegas for a work, and then we decided to split. Everybody took their own life by themselves, and I found myself back in New York City. I started working at a design and fabrication firm that was a kind of a mid-sized company, small to mid-sized company, but still very mom and pops feeling, ready to grow and blow completely. And I found myself being the head of design for this company for a few years. As the company grew, we got bigger and bigger clients. With different fashion brands, we worked on experiential design and experiential marketing, not experiential design, creating experience for customers that would last just a few days or sometimes just one night as an idea to present a new product. Of course, all of this trend was developed with the born and the birth, and the development of platforms like Instagram.
Right.
Are you a small business owner, young professional, or pre-retiree looking to grow and protect your assets but don't know where to start? With all the noise about stocks, bonds, cryptos, it can be hard to know what steps to take. Let Black Swan Financial Group help you so you can focus on doing what you're good at. Black Swan Financial Group is a telefinancial planning firm operating in select states nationwide. They're here to help you protect, create, and grow your assets. Visit blackswanfinancialgroup.com today to get your free consultation. Now back to Side by Side.
So, one of the things you said, I think I saw like a while back on Instagram or something, you did like a pop-up shop for, I think it was like Nike or Virgil or something. Did you do
I have a
something
really
with
hard
them?
time hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, now I can hear you, yes.
Now we
Okay.
can hear you, yeah.
Did you hear were you a part of the Virgil Abloh like off-white Nike thing or something? Didn't you do something there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, man, that was dope.
Tell us about it.
I want to be invited to stuff like that.
Yeah.
How do I get invitations to stuff like that, man?
Just tell me you want to come.
I didn't.
Yeah,
dude, I'm not.
cool.
I'm not.
Most of these things are free and open to the public.
I'm not a part of the in crowd. I don't know. I didn't know it happened until after it already happened.
Okay, I'll start sending you stuff. I'll keep you posted, man.
Oh, yeah, Virgil.
Putting up one on Rodeo Drive if you want to fly to LA and take a look.
What's happening in LA? What are you doing? What are you working on?
It's a project. It's still for Louis Vuitton, which the whole thing for Virgil Abloh was made by Louis Vuitton for Nike. And this one is a show for the 200th anniversary of Louis Vuitton. And they invited 200 artists to produce work inspired by their brand. And it's a traveling show, so this has happened already like several times around the world. And LA is like the American event.
Wow. And you're the designer behind it all.
In the event in New York City, I was the designer on it. Of course, when you work with clients of this caliber, it's not like you don't always come up with a concept.
Yeah.
Very often, like especially a big brand like Louis Vuitton and Nike, they'll have the concept pretty much figured out. And what you do, you help them develop it and make it doable,
Okay.
Sure.
Especially knowing vendors and knowing fabrication techniques and knowing engineering. So it's more of a support. But then there are other clients that will need complete creative pitch, so everything is different. Like in case of Virgil Abloh, these were all Virgil Abloh's ideas that were just channeled into being built and constructed and turned into what his vision was,
Yeah.
So
it looked really
my
cool.
job is to facilitate that vision.
I think I saw it on your wife's Instagram, and I was like, man, what is this? He tells me nothing. I thought we were homeboys.
Yeah, well, so there's a lot
she's much
more.
better than me at the communication thing. I tend to don't do.
Yeah, clearly.
There's definitely a lot more I want to get into about
Sujit.
Giorgio. But before we do that, let's bring Sujit in. Sujit, tell us a little bit about your background, your upbringing, and what you're doing now.
All right. So I grew up in India, in Hyderabad. Lived there till I was about 6 or 7. All my family, everyone, we've all basically lived in the same neighborhood. My family was very involved in like the church. And then my mom, she got promoted for her work. She did a lot of like software marketing type work. And they told her you could either move to Dallas or Chicago. And she chose Chicago. So in like October of 2001, so a month after 9/11, my family, my mom, dad, and me moved to the U.S. to Chicago, and it wasn't the best time to make that move because when we came here, it was really difficult because there was still a lot of like stereotyping, and we faced a lot of prejudice, like riding the bus to work, to school, things like that, stuff that kids would say in class. So it was pretty difficult. And then because of like the currency difference, we struggled growing up here. So from like 2001 to like 2004, 2005, it was really hard to make it by as an immigrant. My dad couldn't work because of like visa rules. And then luckily though, my dad, he would go for a lot of walks because he wasn't working. And he came across this church. It was a random church in Arlington Heights, and the people there were so loving and caring and friendly. They took us in as family. They like showed us they taught me what Oreos were and how you're supposed to take Oreos and dip them into milk, which I thought was like the craziest thing. And then this wild...
I still do.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I still do that too. And then this idea that if it snows, you need these things called snow boots and snow pants to play in the snow. Like, I didn't realize. And the first time it snowed when I was a kid, the principal came to my classroom and took me out of class so I could go outside and see what snow was like. And that was like the wildest thing ever. So there were things like that, you know, growing up here that I cherished. And it really, like, the reason my family was able to succeed and come out of that really, like, bad situation was because the people from our church just took us in, helped us out, get accustomed to the U.S., especially, like, getting our green card and everything. So then that's how I knew for the rest of my life, I want to do something where I'm helping other people out, because that brought me, like, the greatest joy. So I started volunteering with like Special Olympics, Best Buddies, Habitat for Humanity, and then I thought, okay, I want to work in a field where I'm doing that every day. Because when I was in high school, I wanted to go into engineering, especially like architectural design, but I felt like I wasn't really doing that helping. So then I got introduced to like medicine and psychiatry through a family friend. Around the same time, I was playing basketball and I tore my ACL and meniscus. And through physical therapy, I got introduced to podiatry then. And I thought, okay, podiatry is great because you're using sports medicine, you're using all types of like systems. And at the same time, it's like achieving my life goal of helping other people out every single day using medicine. So I'm currently in my 4th year of school right now. I graduate in May, and then I'll start residency after that. So that's where we're at, and we're still dipping our Oreos in milk.
Here you go.
That's great.
Yeah,
like
full circle.
Trying to get you to do all the American customs the first minute you got here, huh?
Yeah, and then like the thing that bothered me is like one of the church members, he was like, we got to get you into baseball, and he handed me a White Sox hat, which was the wrong move. Clearly, you know.
What? No, not at all.
Yeah, no. You got to go Cubby blue.
Oh, bro, cancel the. Yo, just cut it down. We're done. You're done. Who invited him on anyway? Man, it's White Sox all day. You know what? I was like this close to wearing my cap today, my White Sox cap. I really wish I wore it today just for that moment. You probably wouldn't even have the balls to say it.
I thought we're about winners on this podcast, though. Aren't you about winners on here?
Dude, all we do is win, bro.
Wait, didn't you just win for the first time in like ever 1,000 years?
Yeah, like the first time. Yeah, but they get one ring and they think they're like, come on, bro. Get it together, man.
No, we're still milking out that 2016 ring for the rest of our lives, you know?
Yeah.
Giorgio already said he doesn't give a shit about sports, so we're sitting here, he's like, these fucking guys, moving on.
Hey, move on, right? Why are we still talking? He doesn't even know. He actually thinks we're talking about socks. He thinks we're actually talking about White Sox. It's a baseball team.
You're not?
Yeah, right,
oh,
you're
shit.
not.
Damn.
So it was a lot that you both just said that I want to unpack. There's the similarities with the being immigrants and stuff, and faith and all of that. But one thing that I definitely had to throw out is, you said you wanted to initially get into architectural design and you opted out of it because you felt that it wasn't, helping the world. Giorgio, what do you say to that?
Oh, he's right.
You don't feel like you add anything to the world?
Never said,
You agree with that?
Well, it's another tough and, how to say, it's a long conversation to have. Like we should probably have an entire podcast just about this topic, right? And I know that we started this whole podcast with the like Joe Biden joke and everything else. But here's the thing: there's so much wrong that has been done over the century and decades, especially in this country, right?
Yeah.
About architecture and design that is so hard now to change it. So the only way to change it is if we radically change, like dramatically change the education system into people actually understand what helping the world through design and architecture is and what that means.
Can
you
dig a little
because
deeper?
Even the most progressive, I will.
Okay.
This is just the initial thing. if you're talking about, so I had the luck over the years to work for an architecture firm in New York City that was pioneers in the passive housing, and Henry Gifford and Chris Benedict, amazing people, like amazing technicians, amazing creatives, like giant knowledge. And over like 40 years of career, they really started a big change in the industry. Started a class action lawsuit against the least certified buildings, for instance, because like there's laws and laws and laws and rules made by people who actually don't know more, know part of the science behind buildings, but don't actually don't know or do deeper and more informed studies about what could actually make things better.
Yeah.
And working with buildings and with architecture without working with urban planning and insulation and without knowing about energy, when you talk about buildings, if you don't talk about energy, the two things don't really match, right? So if we would understand that buildings and energy are two things that go, because we all live in a building, right?
Right.
I know we can talk about homelessness too, but most of the people live inside something, even if it's a cardboard wrap, literally, we live inside something.
Yeah.
So that something needs to protect us from what's outside. And that's for most of what we spend the most time, most of our life is spent inside a building or dealing with a building or buying a building or renting a building. It's a big thing for all of us, but we don't put any effort in making these buildings efficient and functional and long lasting. Everything is for the most like cheap and crappy, right? So when you apply creativity to this without applying the science, this is the disconnect that you find in the design and architecture world that I would agree with you. It's very discouraging, So you can try to keep it up over and over your career, but it's going to be an extremely challenging task to do.
I feel like you literally are like quoting Fountainhead right now. The Ayn Rand book.
I've been told that many times, but not necessarily, Anyway, okay, I kind of got lost a little bit. Let's go back to the main topic.
Okay, no, it's fine.
It's interesting. I mean,
what was your initial question?
Analogous to kind of like other industries. I feel like where something is wrong systemically, and you got to change to some extent. You want to try to make changes from within, so you don't have to tear down the whole thing and start over. But it's like kind of like the financial system. That's what I was thinking about when he was talking about how the design and the engineering are not necessarily in sync with one another, and the kind of you were talking about the building planning or urban planning aspect going into that as well. It's kind of similar to or analogous to the financial system. I feel like we've kind of diverged in what the incentives are for certain organizations or people that doesn't align with what is good for the main mass of people.
Yeah, no, it seems to be just like it's a bureaucracy, and I think it's the same in like the medical field. The old guard has the reins; they have control, and they want to maintain status quo and don't necessarily want to let in new innovations. Although those innovations could literally be life altering, not only for people on a individual level, but on a massive level for all of us, right? Yeah. And so, like the lead, you mentioned like the lead, and I've seen this on buildings, and there's all these green energy people, and they're like, yeah, the lead is great. And then I have another person that I know who's also an architect, and he had some different things to say about the lead stuff, and he was basically saying it's just political, like it's just basically a badge, it's nothing more than that. Like, can you just walk our listeners through like what lead is and how you understand it?
I mean, let me add something to what we were saying before. I think that if you want systemic change, and again, it's going back to what you started, these words that we were saying at the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah.
You either do a revolution, or you put someone in power who's going to impose to everybody for like 20 years to act in a different way. Dictatorship. Can we really do any of these things? Is our generation used with Instagram and like having it kind of easy, just really go up in arms and destroy everything and rebuilding from scratch?
Right.
Probably not, right?
No, not the TikTok generation.
Nope.
In order to change, no. I mean, if we want to change something systemic, we need to change it from the core, one little step at a time. And not unfortunately, but in the end of the day, it is about educating people in the right way, from when they're kids. So maybe putting more money and more resourcing into education.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want answering to you, I mean, I cannot make as a whole speech about the lead world because it's not really what I do for a living.
Okay.
And I'm sure that plenty of people who do that for a living and they're very proud of what they do. Is like, I'm nobody to just trash them. But what I'm saying is that a building that is made of glass, and has, just think about it, like something that is completely made of glass and needs a lot of power to cool down and a lot of power to be hidden in the winter, or AC in the winter too, because the sun warms it up too much still, How can they possibly be energy efficient? Like, it's really difficult to understand versus a building has like 18 inches of insulation on top of the facade,
Yeah.
Mm.
Those are the questions that I have when you see these like beautifully designed things that have like giant windows, and there's amazing light, but how can they be energy efficient in any possible way?
Yeah.
Right.
It's just...
Well, I'm actually in that kind of space, managing assets and stuff, and it is a major hurdle when it comes to HVAC and kind of keeping people happy within the space and keeping the temperatures right. And also what you said about the glass, it harkens me back to one day I was at a earthquake safety preparedness little like get together luncheon thing, and the fire department came in LA to the building I was at, and they were kind of teaching people in the space about fire preparedness and earthquake safety and all this stuff. And one thing that the fire guy said that has always stuck with me is, he said when the big one happens in Southern California, the big earthquake, they always talk about the big one, meaning like the next big one that hasn't happened in like thousands and thousands of years or whatever, or even since 80s with the one in San Francisco. And he said that when it does happen, unfortunately, because of all the glass, like you were saying, in the skyscrapers in downtown LA and the buildings and stuff, he said there will be 20 feet rivers of glass downtown on the streets. And I was like, my jaw dropped. I was like, that is...
So what's a more sustainable material, do you know?
I don't know. Throw that over to Giorgio.
Talking about sustainable... See, this is a great question, because I think that really outlines the issue, What is a sustainable material? What is sustainability to begin with, Like producing something to make sure that we all have it in the entire world, is that sustainable? Tracking something from a city to another, is that sustainable? Transporting stuff, is that sustainable? No, and everything is sustainable and nothing is sustainable if you just want to generalize, right? And say something a little silly. So, all right, when you talk about sustainability, it's not about one specific material, but it's about what do you do with it and how to use what you have,
Yeah.
If you need to ship... So when I was very young, like I was carving stone. I was living in Italy, in Carrara, where the quarries are, and I had a job with someone selling stone, right? And they would take a block of marble, put it on a ship, send it to China, get it cut in pieces, ship it back to Italy on a ship, and sell it there, because it was much cheaper to take a block of stone from Italy, send it to China to be cut in pieces, and brought back and sold to the market. You would call marble like a sustainable material, right?
I would think so, yeah.
Well, it's natural, yeah.
Yeah.
But how many tons of gasoline did that piece of marble use for it to be cut in your kitchen?
Yeah.
So...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it kind of ties in beautifully with something that Dimari and I always talk about, which is like ancient cultures and ancient civilizations, and like the fact that we still don't know how they moved all these stones all over the world.
Right.
Is fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, and what you just said, it made me think of the Jones Act here in America, because I feel like the real question is, why is it cheaper? Because the only reason why they're obviously sending that stone to China to, be cut is because it's more economical to do that and then bring it back opposed to having it cut in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And in America, we have the Jones Act, which has been around, I don't know, since like the 1700s, 1800s. And people don't talk about it enough. But basically, it says that you cannot, like, if you have a ship that comes into America from, say, China or something, it can only make one stop. So it can only come in from China and, drop off in New York or whatever, and that's it. It can't take the stuff in New York and then go down to Florida, which would be a more efficient trip logistically, and then also pick up stuff and take it back. So most of these ships are actually going back empty, which increases the cost of things. And maybe there's something similar in Italy. So there's a lot of just red tape and bureaucracy, I feel, that really gets in the way of efficiency.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you talk about sustainability, and we need to talk about transportation,
Yeah.
Like, if we keep all the buildings that we have and just insulate them properly and put a heating and cooling system that actually works, rather than a giant, like, you hear a lot of people talking about, I only needed a 1-ton unit, but I put 4 1-ton units, so I'm sure it works.
Yeah.
Like, why? Because the house is not insulated properly, so it leaks everywhere. So you need like 3 times the amount of power that you would need to heat it and cool it if you were doing it right. And what's going to happen at the end of the day? That you just waste energy all over the place, and it's just like so conceptually wrong, the entire conversation, that it's nearly impossible talking about sustainability unless you really go and take into the consideration.
Yeah.
So
Sujit, so you're in the medical industry, and the medical industry has been extremely popular over the past 3 years. So, like, have you seen any of those, like, inefficiencies? I know you're not, like, fully, in there, but you're a part of the industry at this point. Have you seen any, like, inefficiencies or bureaucratic nature of the industry or something that you think we could overthrow? And if so, can you share it with us?
So I think we're actually lucky because as we go on through the ages and generations, physicians, clinicians in general are less about making money and more about trying to help the patient. Because if you look at it in the past, a lot of the options that we used for surgery, a lot of the decisions that were made were profit driven.
Yes.
And not so much how do we help this patient out long term. Now we have more preventative type treatments that might not make you as much money, but it's helping the patient out. And that actually comes with a sense of selflessness that you can't teach. And it's more so like something that can't be changed through like laws or policies or training videos and things like that. It's just this idea, like, why are you going into medicine? Is it worth you going into 300, 400 grand in debt? Like, if it is, then it comes from your heart. So kind of related to that, in terms of inefficiencies, we're just getting better at making sure that everything that we're doing is cost cutting. Because, like, let me give you an example. With the surgeries that we see a lot of times with foot and ankles, we're making sure that before the surgery even starts, we have the right types of reps for the materials that we're going to use, like the implants, the devices, so that we don't have to get a bunch of implants that we don't end up using and waste thousands of dollars. Make sure we have the right post-op materials and casts. Everything is written out, assessed, costs are added up, and you're made sure, okay, we're spending the least amount that we need to give the best type of treatment.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's just like I can't figure out the whole medical system at all. I mean, like, the costs aren't really transparent, so you really have no idea what you're paying for. But, what you're saying is really just tied into the whole Hippocratic Oath. Like, that's what you're supposed to be doing, but the system that doctors operate in doesn't really allow for that because they need to make money. So it seems to me that they're certainly incentivized to not necessarily fix problems, but just kind of mitigate them and just, have it as an ongoing issue. What do you say to that?
Well, here's the funny thing. So I'm just going to be honest. There's plenty of doctors I've worked with who say, okay, this patient might not need this type of device for arch support for their foot pain, but charge them for it. Tell them that that they need it. That's $400 in your pocket. They're going to come back in a year. That's $400 again. It's going to keep adding up, right? And then you're making money. So I remember talking to one of the doctors, and I was like, why would you want to do that? Because the materials and everything to make that device costs probably $50. Okay, it's an orthotic that you put in your shoe for arch support. It helps with plantar fasciitis, for example, which a lot of us have, flat-footedness.
Yep.
Costs like $50 to make. Why are we charging $400? That seems ridiculous. And he was like, well, who's going to pay off your loans? You're putting in all the hours. And I'm thinking, that's just wrong. And I thought, okay, this is an exception. But then you go out on rotations, you see all these hospital systems, especially private practice. It's just ingrained already. And then you kind of have to, when you join these companies, these groups, the ortho groups and things like that, you have to go with the system because you're already paying so much in terms of rent fees, your malpractice fees, your loans still, that if you try to cut everything down, you're going to end up in debt yourself. So you're kind of, it's like a weird situation.
It's like
your hands are kind of tied.
You have to, you kind of have to comply with the system. That's really, were you going to say something?
But on the flip side, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So on the flip side, I have seen other doctors who are like, okay, you know what? These patients in this demographic region, they might not be able to afford these sort of treatments. Let's see what we can do. Let's reach out to other companies that'll possibly donate. Let's try some home physical therapy exercises, some cheaper materials, see if that works and try to accommodate to the patient's needs instead of being like, okay, if you can't afford it, that's your problem. So there's both sides to this.
Hey everybody, Brandon and Dimari from Side by Side here. Just want to tell you about one of our newest sponsors, Ease Web Development.
Ease Web Development specializes in building high conversion websites and marketing campaigns that take your business to the next level. They're the easy decision when it comes to marketing.
So check them out now at www.easewebdev.com. That's ease, WEBDEV.com. Now back to the show. Yeah, and so back to Dimari had said something about red tape, and just that is perfect term for it, because the red tape and anything tends to get in the way and slow the efficiencies down. And speaking of red tape, you both spoke a little bit on the beginning about being immigrants, and so I just want to kind of pivot over to that for a second, because we got both of you on here. Both of you sounds like have spent a lot of your life in the U.S., but also, Sujit, you grew up overseas, and then Giorgio assimilated and moved till you were an adult. And so, since we have both of you on here, you can speak from different perspectives on just like what the immigration process was like becoming, a citizen of the United States, or if you're not yet, obviously speak to that.
Yeah, and also just, that transition, because there's a lot of people in America who hate on America, and then I talk to immigrants, and they're like, what, dude, I love America. So if you could also just like touch on that. We'll start with you, Sujit.
So, that's why when a lot of people hate on America, I try to tell them when I lived in India, when I would come home, I would have to make sure that there were always riots going on between like different religious groups. So when I'm in the U.S., I'm not driving back from school worrying about getting bombed. I don't have to go hide under my table when there's riots going on right outside my house.
Hold on, but wait, you live in Chicago, Sujit.
Yeah, okay, but I live in Rolling Meadows, all right? I live in like a white suburb where Martha's got like her like Bugatti.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I'm good,
Yeah.
I'm blessed. I've been blessed. But like you realize when you grow up in like this immigrant experience in another country where your basic survival needs aren't being met, you come over here and you realize you're grateful for a lot of things. Okay, like sure, we have a lot of issues here systemically in the United States, but like I can go outside, go to the gym if I want to. I can go pursue whatever career that I have that in mind. I can basically do a lot of what I want. And I get it. I'm privileged in a sense because a lot of people don't have that experience and that capability. And I'm blessed that I have that. So that's why anytime I hear people talking crap about the U.S., I think, my family had to fight to stay here. Like, having our visas extended, getting our green card after our paperwork got lost, and then getting our citizenship in 2014. That was something that we had to go to bed every day fearing, are we going to get deported because our papers didn't get extended? Will I lose all my friends that I made in the U.S.? And then finally, when we got that citizenship and everyone, like all our family and friends were in that courtroom and like we stood up and we were like waving the flags and it just felt like, man, it feels great to be here. Like I love being an American. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of issues here, but this experience showed me like I love it. You know, I'm grateful for it.
So what's that process like becoming a U.S. citizen? I hear there's a lot. Like you probably still have the preamble in memory or something, right? Like they make you like memorize things and stuff. Is that true?
Yeah. So once you get your visa to stay here, and then you have to get a green card, which lets you be a permanent resident. But while you have that green card, that's when you apply for citizenship. And that application process, I know it's gotten much more difficult recently, and Giorgio can talk on that. But what we had to do was they basically do an extensive background check on you, which takes years. They have to like reach out to family, friends, work. You have to like take a test. You have to read this book that asks you like who the 11th president of the United States was. And I'm like, like my white friends don't even know that. So like, you know, you're studying hard, you're making flashcards, and you show up to like this interview at the end where they ask you questions, but the questions are super easy. It's like, okay, read this sentence back to me in English so I know that you can actually speak English. Or who's the president of the United States right now? It's like 5 questions. Once you pass that, they basically deem you a U.S. citizen, and you go to a ceremony in like a courthouse, and you're actually surrounded by people from all other countries who are becoming citizens that day. So, and again, like I can't go into details because I was a kid, and that stuff honestly stressed me out a lot. So my parents kind of kept me away from that whole process in terms of worrying about, okay, will we be able to extend our visa or will we be deported? But I can talk about it in general. It was a very stressful and difficult experience. That's why like my parents feel very strongly about like immigration here right now. And then I know I'm talking a lot, but one thing I wanted to touch on was a lot of people who are immigrants here, they say like we earned our right for citizenship, and so should everybody else. Like don't keep illegal immigrants in the US, kick them out. My thing that I always say is my family was blessed and lucky enough to have the money and resources to be able to get a lawyer, to be able to file for the paperwork to get a citizenship. A lot of people, when they come over here as illegal immigrants, they're escaping life that's so much worse. They don't have that ability, yet they're doing their best to provide for the economy and do their part. So despite being an immigrant who went through that whole process myself, I feel like we should be accepting to everyone and like forget about that whole illegal bullshit.
I love it. I love that, man. Yeah. Giorgio, can you just like, you know, to Rizzo's point, you didn't get here until almost 30. So I'm sure it's fresh in your mind and you're still going through the process. Just walk us through that transition for you. And also, what do you have to say, you know, when Americans hate on America?
Well, listen, being an immigrant is no fun for nobody, you know? For sure, there's like, just like you say, I couldn't agree more. Like some people are blessed, you know. I am a blessed person, you know. I'm very blessed, despite the fact, you know, when I got here, I struggled. When I first got in New York, it was very hard, you know. I started by doing whatever I could do, like busboying tables or, you know, working one day at a time. And if I look at my income from the first year to the 6th year, it was just. But before it became a regular, like stable income, it was like really like extremely low, you know. And I'm a very blessed person, and I came here and I could speak in English and I could read and write and pay for my own flight. It's not like I have no struggling traveling experience. So yes, it's very tough for everybody, and I can absolutely sympathize with this idea that for the entire time you're applying and you're going through the process of receiving a permanent resident card or a visa, you go to bed at night and you think at 6 a.m. I might get someone knocking at my door and kicking me out of here, you know? Because that happens. It simply happens, you know? I have friends who, you know, had a visa in New York and did something, I don't know, had the, whatever, a working visa and they weren't supposed to, I don't know, have whatever, mail delivered on a specific day because they were transitioning, and I don't know. Like I have a friend who just went to Canada for a trip, picked up her mail, and was waiting for the new visa. And when she came back, she had mail in her bag, and they searched her bag, and I was like, "Oh, so you're already a resident in the United States?" It's like, "No, I'm not a resident, but I have something shipped there because." She's like, "Well, but we have a Connet bill here." Yeah, but because we put it in my name, so I could pay directly, and not. Well, you're not allowed in the United States anymore.
Wow.
She had a job here,
Wow.
like someone from Italy who grew up in a wealthy family and everything. Nothing, you know. So you hear lots of these stories. I mean, myself when I did my first interview for the permanent resident card, the post office lost my birth certificate.
Wow.
So I needed to get a copy issued, and despite the fact that the copy that I had was an original copy and was stamped and notarized and had an original translation and all the things that were necessary, it was not the copy that when you send the paperwork to apply for a visa, you don't send the original stuff. You send like a scan, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And since it was not the same piece of paper, they denied me.
Jeez.
So I had to wait 8 months until the post office found my birth certificate and reapply.
So it's really interesting because there's a lot of determination, it seems like, to make this happen and make this a reality. And Italy's such a beautiful place. It's awesome. Why go through all of that trouble to be here opposed to being in Italy?
Good question.
Well, I mean, there are many things. I think that there's a global mindset that we are part of in our generation. I don't know. I was always raised like growing up. I always wanted to see the world and to be in New York and to see more and to do more. And then I ended up for personal and work reasons in the United States. Of course, everybody's excited about moving to New York, right? You're 30 years old. I'm gonna move to New York. It's like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And yes, Italy is a beautiful country, but also has its own issues. And I think that a market for the creative world, like you can find in the United States, and especially in cities like New York, does not exist anywhere else. So really, the possibility to build a career in this industry, if you're coming from there and you don't come maybe from a background of people who can guide you in this industry over there, it's much smaller, right? So I don't know. I think to me it was always attractive and interesting to come and be here. So I was driven to this desire of an international life.
Okay, so it's more so just like the ideal, the ideal of it, not necessarily like you are escaping from like some despotic government, but you also hinted to the point that you feel that there's more opportunities in your space here in the.
There's I mean, you can reach the entire world. We can connect back to, I know we kind of moved away from it, but this idea of can you bring change with what you do? If you stay tuned to a small market, maybe that's necessary too. I'm not saying maybe that is definitely necessary as well. Where I grew up, there wasn't any, so I had to move and find it anywhere. So anyway,
but I mean, you mentioned early on, like your father was very successful at what he did, and that's kind of what inspired you to do it. So, do you feel like you have greater opportunities, or?
Yeah, for a different generation, like I think that from nobody having a car to everybody having a car, for what their generation was, it was a completely different world, right? If you work in that kind of industry, and from literally nobody going to school after they're 13 years old to like everybody having a college degree, like teaching music, it had become a thing that it just didn't exist before. So for that generation, it was absolutely possible to like build a life and kind of just take risks, For our generation, it's kind of not the same thing,
And I think you made a great point about this kind of idea of like a globalized generation, or a generation that grew up with a globalized mentality. I mean, I definitely feel that. I feel like my friends, we all love to travel. We love to like go experience new places. And I think that that's definitely something that's in our generation that wasn't in my necessarily my parents' generation, at least the parents I grew up around that had much more of like a blue collar life or came from poverty type of life, they really didn't understand that concept of traveling overseas to experience the world. It was more about got to work for what you own and work hard and put your nose to the grindstone type of mentality. So it's interesting you touched on that, and it also kind of ties into what I want to ask you guys about next, which
Allegedly.
is we spoke a little bit about the globalized sense of like you guys becoming immigrants and having that kind of perception growing up throughout this generation, and then on the flip side, we were started off talking about your guys' backgrounds and contributing to the betterment of the world and the sustainability and all that. So I gotta ask, temperatures around the world right now this week soaring record highs. Allegedly there's this thing called global warming or climate change.
Yeah.
So curious to hear your thoughts about not only this crazy weather situation we're in. We're in Texas. It's been 104 degrees for over a month. We'll throw it to you, Sujit, but just give us your thoughts on, this last couple of weeks with this weather and
global warming. Is it real or is it a hoax?
I mean, there's literature and scientific data that shows that there has been an upward trend in average temperatures across the entire world and the effect that it's having on crops, agriculture in general, the ice caps as well. So yes, I'm thankful for it as a Chicagoan because that means that's less of that winter I'm going to have to deal with. Even if it's minor, like 1 degree, like helps so much. Dimari knows Chicago winters are the worst. So I hope for the sake of that, global warming is real, which I think it is.
That's funny. Gee, what do you have to say about that?
What I have to say, global warming is real. It's happening under our eyes. We cannot deny that. There's nothing we can do about. There's nothing we can say about. Oh, it's not happening. It is happening. What is unreal is the amount of the surreal stuff that most of the people who are involved into solving the issue do or say.
Wait, can you elaborate a little bit about that? I'm sorry, CJ. I just want him to elaborate a little bit about that last statement.
I mean, you can just watch the basic documentaries on Netflix about the fishing industry, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
From the 80s until now, we reduced the fish population by 90 or 80 something percent. So, what do fish bring to the sea apart from being beautiful and delicious? They breathe and switch the air inside the ocean. So the ocean sucks the carbon in, drops in the bottom of the ocean. So if we wouldn't have overfished the oceans, we would not have the carbon issue that we have.
So is it a man-made problem then, or is it a natural occurrence?
It's a man-made. Like overfishing caused the oceans to be to not be capable of digesting as much carbon as we produce.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry, Suji, what were you going to say?
I was going to say it's this idea that I feel we see more nowadays where people are going against COVID, like saying that the virus doesn't exist, it was released by the government, or certain vaccines are just a hoax. Things like global warming isn't real. Just childhood vaccines that we're supposed to give to everyone have some sort of implant devices in them. I think the problem is
wait, they don't? Just kidding.
No, Apple's tracking you right now, man.
No, I don't.
Oh, dude, Siri's always listening to me. We never even say, hey, Siri, and she's just like, huh? So I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It's a conspiracy.
But my thing is, I feel like a lot of people are just trying to go against the data and the research because it's their way of exercising their freedom, and they think, okay, exercising this freedom makes me intelligent, which is poisonous because people who believe a certain thing, their social media will only show them that, and it'll be reinforced with their ideas, and they're going to talk to people that reinforce their ideas. Then they're in this inner circle where they think, okay, everyone thinks this way, I'm right. It's this group polarization. You see that a lot with global warming. You're following all these pages on Facebook that are anti-global warming, and you think, okay, everyone believes this.
Yeah,
So
no, and
I
that's
think,
what we
like,
wanted
that's
to
the
do
root.
here with Side by Side, because there's a lot of echo chambers. Is kind of what you're getting at, and we just like to bring people with different ideas. There's really, I don't think, any wrong answers. It's kind of your opinion, because when it comes to a lot of the science, there's a scientific method. Everybody, does that whole process, and then you put it up to your peers for review, and they decide. And honestly, you can go on either side of the argument and find data that would support that narrative. So, I think to G's point, it's really a human issue. It
Yeah,
seems
and
to be.
also you have to just to add to what you're saying, not to interrupt you,
No,
like
please.
you have to like make a clear distinction between knowledge and information. We all have access to information.
Yeah.
And in some form, we will find some information about something.
Yes.
Whether it's an opinion that is outgrown in the wrong direction, or if it's a group of people believing something. But knowledge is a different thing. Like when COVID, or like I have two very little kids, and I remember when they were born, going through the whole thing, should we vaccine them or not vaccine them, And you go through all of this opinion from people being like, oh, I did my own research. But what is research for a vaccine? You take people and for 25 years, you put them in a study, right? You're in the medical field. How can you gain that knowledge by yourself?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Have to, my thing I always say is look at these articles and the facts that are coming out. Is it peer reviewed? How many people have they recruited for the study? Do they have any sort of financial incentive to stray their results one way or the other? And then go from there. Like if you look at the medical article journals that are well established, they're not going to send out information that's skewed that way. Versus, okay, I'm going to believe this because my aunt said it, or my dad feels that way, so I trust him. Experiential versus empirical evidence.
Yeah, and you also have to look at another thing, because I got this funny quote that I hear, but they say 89% of all statistics are bullshit, which is a funny joke, right?
I don't know about that, but I mean, we're talking about gas and electricity, right? I would love to do a quick research in all the major American cities and see how much gas do the cities burn to create electricity for the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
going back to the
if you
vaccine,
look at
I was
the
just
data,
thinking about the regression means test is another thing that you really have to look at. Is how many times did you actually run the regression means test to come up with that percentage? And that's why we say 80. You can come up with any number and say 87% of statistics is bullshit, because there's a black box. And I know you know this. You're a designer, and you understand math very well, which I know on a personal level. But it's a lot of BS. But there's a lot of misinformation going on right now, and it's really hard to figure out what's true and what's not.
Right.
And there's a lot of fighting, whether physically fighting, verbally fighting, family members. Like there's a huge divide, chasm. You're on this side, I'm on this side. I can't be your friend. This whole otherism, and it creates a lot of stress. And I want to just kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about as men dealing with the world, trying to be successful. Gee, you mentioned you have 2 little kids, you have a wife. That's a whole nother level of new stresses, new challenges, right? How do you deal with stress and your mental health through it all, G?
Alcohol.
What's your drink of choice? What's
Certainly one way.
Well, no, I don't drink that much.
That much. That's like that. That's like the teenager that says, "I don't beat off that much."
I don't drink that much. No, drinks are part of stuff, man. It's tough, man. But again, you train yourself every single day for many years until you get a little bit better. When you're 20 years old, like you get an input and you freak out. When you're 40, you take a big breath, think twice, and you learn like how to stay true to yourself, be able to manage expectation. Look, this is one of the points. Like managing expectation. Don't have unrealistic expectation. Don't project what you think people should be. But have realistic perception of what people are. Many of us, you get into a relationship with a person and you would love the person to be something that they are not. So what's going to happen? You're going to put all of your energy projecting what the person should be. And it's going to be extremely stressful. Like, as soon as you get out of this mindset, which comes out of many other systemic things that we know, there's prejudice,
Yeah.
like, we are so in our minds. And again, exactly what you're saying, knowledge, information, groups, internet, the mediatic world, the information, blah, 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 it's a lot of perception, but it's not a lot of truth, right?
But so from a personal level, like, how do you make that distinction?
Which distinction?
That distinction between, my perception versus the actual reality, because you had to, there's kind of like a loop.
You have to be true to yourself. I know, but you have to stay true to yourself, we all know, like, when you're hungry, you're hungry. When you're sleepy, right?
A lot of people actually eat when they're bored and they think they're hungry.
Yeah.
There you go.
Aiden's raising his hand over here.
Yeah. Another topic that we should open an entire podcast about. If you try and understand what your real needs are as a being and trying to live accordingly, that's a starting point.
I like that path inward. Sujit, so I know this is something that's really near and dear to you, mental health. Mm-hmm. Walk us through that whole process. What do you do to deal with all of the stress and encourage people to stay mentally healthy in this world?
So, I always grew up with people who told me, if you're stressed, have a lot going on, you got to be a man, you got to suck it up, go to the gym, work it out, punch some bags, and be tough, Look at all the actors, the movie stars, in movies, what do? They suck it up. You can't cry.
Yeah, man.
Right? Yeah, you got to be a dog. They say you got to be
toxic masculinity.
Yeah, exactly. Right? You got to be a dog, they say. D-A-W-G.
Exactly.
But that's what I lived through, and then I realized that it was the most toxic, self-inflicting thing ever. The past year, I dealt with a lot of hardships in terms of, like, losing my grandma, my mom getting cancer, and then one of my best friends, this was a couple of years back, he passed away as well because of a struggle he had with depression. So that hit close to home. So when I was going through all this, I realized I wasn't handling myself well. And a lot of my friends told me, like, have you ever tried therapy or journaling? And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that sounds like some soft, why would I do that? I'm just trying to be tough. I'm going to go work out and then I'll be good. It wasn't until I took that leap and I thought, okay, let me just give it a shot. I'll go to therapy, see how it works. And it honestly, I'm not trying to exaggerate. It changed my life when I felt like I could accept that if I feel angry or sad or depressed or stressed, it's a valid emotion. It's not something I should run away from or repress, but accept, like, I'm a human being. I'll feel that way. So now how am I going to channel those emotions? What I started doing was I started journaling, where every day I would write down 5 things I was thankful for, and that just made me very optimistic moving forward. Like, the littlest of things, like yesterday this lady opened the door for me, I was carrying my groceries in. It's the smallest thing in the world, but it makes you so happy and blessed for everything around you. And then I started encouraging, like, all my guys in my life. Like, I told them, like, being a man is being vulnerable and open with your emotions and being accepting of it. So they started also going to therapy, talking things out. Like, anytime you're upset about a breakup or something that happened at work, just coming home, talking on the phone, and just letting it all out. Because honestly, we have this toxic idea that we're supposed to suck it up. But I think it's much better and healthier if you just let it out, talk, reach out when you need help, and accept that you're a human being at the end of the day, regardless of what gender you identify as.
Yeah. So you mentioned therapy specifically, right? But you also said, talking and getting it out. So what would you say are the benefits for speaking to a therapist versus just, talking to your friend or talking to a spouse or something about your issues?
I felt like even when I talked to my best friends, there was something different about a therapist where you felt like you weren't impeding on their time, that you weren't a burden. You just could just unleash everything onto them, even, and then they are certified and trained to help you look at things in ways that you had never thought of before. Like, okay, is there a reason why you have these sort of insecurities? It stems from your childhood when you were bullied about your skin color, your accent, your weight. That's why you have these sort of issues. And like, that seems very superficial and obvious, but you don't understand those things unless you talk to a therapist. And they help you open your eyes and see things in a way that you've never seen. And then once you're able to do that, you're able to tackle those situations that you had never seen before. It's just all my friends who have done it have said that it allows them to open up and speak and flow in a way with a therapist that hadn't with like a girlfriend, a fiance, a wife, or a best friend.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's something we touched on with guys we spoke to last week. And just, yeah, it's that with friends, with family, you could have that attachment, kind of the judgment, their own perspective of what they think your life should be because they know you and stuff. And it's all that baggage gets mixed up in with the conversation, and so you don't really have the true sense of what you need
that neutral opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
So, have you ever you don't, if you don't feel comfortable, you have to let us know, but have you ever like talked to a therapist, or you just kind of figured out, because you're pretty introspective?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, I did my years of therapy, and I think it was very, very eye-opening and very helpful. And again, like going back to that, all these things that I just said, like about staying true to yourself and like not lie to yourself and just stop projecting. These are all things that I've learned through therapy, you know?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I have a very unsuccessful relationship, for instance. And I realized that the biggest part of the problem was actually me, you know? Just because I constantly projected an image that was not real. All born and bred inside myself because of being bold as a kid, because of all the changes, all the things, all the blah blah that happened. And I mean, that you know, we could talk for hours about, but having someone that just has a specific time to help you, and is exactly as you said, is not one of your friends who you're out having a drink with. Yes, you can have a meltdown and a heart to heart with a friend when you need to, and your friends will do it for you, or with you when they need. You know, you'll do it for them. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the same thing. Like, because you always, someone who knows you always has an idea of you, a perception of you, a projection of you. Whereas a therapist, when you find the right therapist, of course, it's not like the first day you go and talk to someone is going to be like, oh, perfect, now great, you know.
Yeah.
It's a process, it's a relationship, but it's a dedicated time for yourself to focus on something and learn how to grow and adjust.
They really help. So, basically, you know, it's kind of like from people I talk to, and I've had a great breakthrough experience with a therapist as well, which we talked about last episode. But it's like they're really just like shining a light on the dark spots, on all of your blind spots that you can't see, and they can play devil's advocate, but then they can also side with you at times and be like, "You're not wrong to feel that way." To Sujit's point, your emotions are real.
Yeah, no, that's like one of the first things you have to realize. It's really one of the first things that it will start making you feel better. If you don't feel better, it's like your emotions are all valid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can be angry. You can hate someone. It's fine.
Exactly.
Right,
you know?
right.
You want to punch the life out of someone. It is fine.
Right.
Yeah, and you can take that emotion out in healthy ways. Like if you want to go punch a wall, it might not be the best thing, but go.
Yeah, maybe don't do it. But
else.
It's okay to feel like that.
Right.
But if you repress the feeling and you're like, I'm not feeling like that, you know, that's when you're gonna lose your mind.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think just to kind of like tie into the mental health aspect, I think for me, at least, my kind of teachings and walk through life, and I'm a spiritual guy, I think there's these three planes of existence, right? If we're talking about the physical realm, the mental realm, and the spiritual realm, you really have to have all three components kind of in sync for that true kind of healthy spirit to emerge. I feel like, at least my opinion, and Sujit had spoke a little bit about kind of being involved in church and how that shaped you and impacted you. And Giorgio, just curious, before I throw it to Sujit, just speaking to the mental health aspect of that, is there a kind of like a spiritual practice? Are you a religious guy? Is there any component to your life in that regard that kind of helps you and your mental health? Giorgio, sorry.
Oh, me first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Where to? I mean, I was raised in Italy, as I said before. The Catholic Church is very present, so it's an environment where you're like born and raised, like literally is part of the life. It's not almost not a choice, right? So you inherited all this, whether you care about it, you don't care about it, whether you're looking for it, where you don't looking for it. So it's very hard for me to detach it from my life at this point, right?
Yes.
Despite I'm not part of a church or a religion, or I don't really practice, I do see myself as a very spiritual person. I don't necessarily, not yet, at least I'm not gonna say never, see myself being part of an organization, or I don't see the need of an organization that will help you connect with something else, especially if there's money involved, like if you're all supposed to die, why do we need to build giant things or be given money? I don't know about that, but it's also true that like there's many people part of these organizations that help other people, that give other people the space and the possibility, just like you were saying earlier about your father getting to know this church, this local church that would really help you your life, and is just be successful in the United States as a kid, just like you said. So it's not.
So it sounds like the spiritual connection for you, correct me if I'm wrong, is more so just your connection with the actual source. And I've always felt this way because I look at like education, and education is not a building. Education is actually putting in the work, studying. And I think a lot of people conflate spirituality with a building. It has to happen inside of this church, where I just don't agree with that.
Right. The real church is right here.
The real church is right inside. Yeah. So Sujit,
that's really how I feel.
And so Sujit, you did mention like your dad, came and you guys found that church. Were you? And I know you're Christian, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you Christian back in India?
Yeah. So my great grandfather, he went to go study in London, and that's when he got introduced to Christianity and converted to Christianity. And the family he was staying with, they were Christians as well, and they introduced him to the religion. So, and their last name was Johnston, so that's how he took the last name Johnston. Came over to India, began studying ministry, became a priest, and that's how. And then on my mom's side, it was same exact story. The great grandfather, became a priest through other experiences, and that's how we were raised Christian in India, and so was like our entire family.
Okay. So that was a pretty seamless transition to find the Christian church in Arlington Heights.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, 100%.
Okay, got it.
It's like every 10 feet there's like a church. But I want to go back to like one of the points you were saying about spirituality and like religion not confined to a church, to a building. Completely agree with that, because I feel like a lot of times we're forced religion growing up. Like our parents make us go to church, and we're like, why are we here? It's a Sunday morning, I want to sleep in. Like the priest keeps talking and talking, I just want to sit down, and like this wine doesn't even taste good. But what I realized was, so I was just doing these monotonous things over the years. Like I was an acolyte, I was like doing Sunday school, but what did this mean to me? Nothing. It wasn't until the recent years when I faced a lot of hardships, I realized like what is faith, like the impact that it has on you. And that's what I tell people, like especially when you're thinking about differences in religions, like if people are different religions, like let them have their beliefs, let them like respect those beliefs, but know that it's the impact that it has on a person that matters. So with me, spirituality and faith helped me understand that when there's things that are out of my control, like a car accident, health results from like a test, my mom's cancer, exam results coming out, things that I can't control, knowing that, okay, there's someone else out there who's watching over me, and just that little sense of hope that you get, even if it's giddy, optimistic, false hope, it's a hope that'll keep you going an extra hour, an extra day, an extra week, and that to me is the beauty of religion.
Wow.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Very powerful.
Well, gentlemen, before we get out of here, we definitely want to respect your time. We really appreciate you guys coming on. But, you know, I'm wearing this shirt. Everybody knows my last name. I've got a fellow brethren on the podcast.
A Guidi.
I can't let you leave without each of you kind of sharing your favorite Italian dish. And maybe it's something.
Now we need an Indian dish too, though.
Maybe it's something you. Maybe it's something you like to cook, or
hey,
maybe
listen,
it's something you like to be cooked
He's a good
for
cook.
you.
He's a great cook.
I have to tell you something. I had dinner once in Dubai from an Indian chef, a private dinner at some client's house.
Yeah.
It was the best food I've ever eaten in my entire life.
Wow.
What kind of food was it?
Okay.
It was like this guy's creation based on like traditional Indian kitchen. But I haven't been capable of finding like an Indian restaurant that can.
What was the name?
Was it northern or southern?
No,
India?
It wasn't a restaurant. It was a chef.
Yeah,
It
It was probably
private
southern,
house.
because southern is so much better, anyways.
Oh my god!
Oh,
It was just like the most
of-
insane flavors. Like you bite something and it has three different flavors, and as you're eating it, it changes in your mouth, and you're like,
Yeah.
how can I have
It's
more
like
of
sweet,
this?
spice, juicy. Like,
Well, I had
so
the
good.
best Indian food I ever had in London in April. I can't remember the place, but it was phenomenal. But okay, so it could be from your own culture. It could be from any other culture. But
Well, no, let's stick with Indian, and then we'll get your Italian.
Okay,
though. But
cool,
Sujit,
cool.
what best Indian dish?
Best Indian dish, anywhere I go, I would pick chicken biryani, because biryani is from Hyderabad. Like the best biryani is from where I grew up, Hyderabad.
awesome.
Bunch of spices, saffron rice, get some lamb in there too. But I'd be doing a disservice. I didn't say like the best food I've ever had Indian wise is my mom's, so I'm gonna say it's my mom's biryani.
Yeah, right.
Nice. All right, so
Italian.
Giorgio,
Italian dish. Hit us with it.
Whew, that's difficult to say. You know, I like. What's my favorite thing to eat in Italy? You know, we eat a lot of different meats and a lot of different kinds of like animal body parts than in the United States.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that you wouldn't eat here and you eat normally there.
Yeah.
Like a lot of raw meat stuff too.
Guanciale,
like raw horse meat. Or
what does horse meat taste like?
It tastes like great.
That's
really good.
So, like
Horse
what? Like horse
or
meat, just like
you eat
straight up, or like in a
rabbits.
pasta, or like what? How do you?
Like with some
No,
sauce?
you do like a horse tartar steak. It's very delicious, man.
Really?
Or you know, like a rabbit. Rabbit. We eat a lot of rabbits. You know.
Yeah, I had
like
a really
rabbit
good
ragu is really good. Man.
What's it called? Rabbit what?
Ragu. Like we make ragu with rabbit. You know.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Can you make that next time I see you?
Expectancy.
Of course, yeah. You know, so we eat like all the interiors of the cow, right? Like, so I don't know if I have a favorite. I think I really like fish and fruits and vegetables. In the end, that would be like my go-to thing. So there's ways to like cook and grill fish that we do over there that I really like. Kind of local, you know.
There's this chef that's from Austin who spoke about his upbringing in Venice. He trained with this chef in Venice, and he tells this story once about the time he was learning from that chef, and the chef was in like a small restaurant, and he would have to cook with the things that were available to that day, and so he literally like 10 minutes before goes into the river, gets the fish that he fished from that day, and then just throws it on the grill. And he made a point to tell him not to salt it because it just come from the water that day, and it was salty enough for the dish, which was really interesting. So it kind of impacted his way of cooking to be very like farm to table esque. And so he does a similar kind of ethos of cooking where he only takes stuff from the regional part of Central Texas that we're in. So I guess the vegetables and the meats and stuff are all come from locally, like are grown in this part of Texas, and then he'll make his menu with those things. So I love that.
Sujit, best Italian dish, man. What's up? What you got?
I like pesto cavatappi.
Nice.
Just I don't know. I just
Classic.
like it. Kind of relating to that though.
Is...
I will say there's a documentary I saw. They talked about Sardinia and how they have one of the highest life expectancies in the entire world.
Blue zone.
Because they make everything from scratch. So it's somewhere that I don't know if you've been, Giorgio, but I definitely want to visit. Everyone there is like 103, drinking beers every day, going on walks. It's
listen, it's not uncommon that if you live that kind of life, you actually feel better about yourself, you know.
So moral of the story, back to Giorgio's point, to combat mental health, longevity, old age, all of that stuff, just drink. He says alcohol is the key.
Listen, like doctors say that a glass of red wine is like an hour at the gym. So, I have 5.
I'll attest to that. Okay.
And then you find out that the people who did those studies was funded by the wine companies.
Exactly. What's your favorite Italian dish?
Oh man, it's so hard. But I generally would say, like, for the flavors, some sort of spicy pork pasta dish. So, whether it's a guanciale or a arrabbiata or something like that, that's generally like my favorite dish to eat or to order. But anything.
So good. Yeah. I don't know. I go back and forth. Like lately, I don't know. I've been like into like the shrimp fra diavolo. It's pretty good. G, on another note, what do you like to cook though? Like Italian? What's your favorite dish to cook?
It's I don't know. It's tough. I don't have a favorite thing. It's the process, right? I like doing things from scratch.
Yeah, same.
So if I'm into pasta, I like doing pasta from scratch or like stuffed pasta.
Yeah.
With the area where I grew up, there's like some stuffed pasta, like ravioli style things. There's a special way that it's done just in a small area. And this is something I really enjoy cooking because it reminds me of where I come from. Or there's a specific way how meat is grilled, and what kind of flavors, what kind of spices are used to grill the meat in that specific way. So that reminds me of home. So I like doing that. But I also really like fusion things, right? How to like enhance. And even if you go to Italy now, I think the Italian American food is much more old as a concept than the food you would eat in Italy now.
It was funny when you just said that. I was literally thinking fusion, and I was like, man, I wonder what like if you and your wife like stuff like some of the Dominican stuff into a pasta, what that would taste like. That'd
be really good.
That'd be fire.
Yeah, you could make it good.
Listen, I mean, there's definitely different spices and different way of cooking, but there's many things that are done in a pretty similar way. I wouldn't. And still, I think when you create a kitchen, the kitchen is based on the things that you have available, right?
Right.
1,000 years ago, it's not like they could truck fish from the ocean to the mainland, right? So, if you come from the coast, your specialty is fish. If you come from the mountains, your specialty is meat or something, right?
Yeah. I mean,
so
Suji,
whatever grows there, you're gonna cook it.
Suji, you're like becoming a doctor. So, like, what are you eating? Just like Starbucks and cocaine or something, or what?
No, it's like Dunkin' Donuts,
Starbucks and cocaine.
I'll tell you off the air, but no. Honestly, the key is making sure that you maintain a good diet because that plays such a role in how active you are. Like, I try to like work out every day and then meal prep with like the rice, chicken, ground beef, ground turkey. Try to eat very healthy by meal prepping because a lot of times when you start residency, when you're in med school, you see a lot of people gain weight because they're eating unhealthy. They're just making excuses. You can make time to meal prep, cook for an hour every Sunday, and then go work out an hour every day, 30 minutes. And then most importantly, keep up with family and friends. It's all up here to me.
Right. Yeah. Love that.
But that's plenty of Starbucks too. I'm not going to lie. Plenty of Starbucks.
Yeah. Dude,
Starbucks Monday through Friday, and then tequila and whiskey Friday, Saturday.
Yo, man, it's been so awesome talking to you guys, man. Sure. So I'd like to just close it out, man. If the people are looking for you, Sujit, where can they find you, man?
They can find me on Instagram. It's Sujit_Johnston. Any questions I'd love to talk about, like mental health, and I give a lot of advice for people going into medical school, applying to medical school, and just need any support. So they can reach out to me on there, or sujit.johnston@gmail.com as well.
Awesome.
Love it. Thanks, man. And Giorgio, where can the people find you if they're looking for you?
Corner bar.
Corner bar.
Where's the corner bar?
Dumbo in Brooklyn, J Street and
J68. That's my favorite bar.
Yeah, 68J. There you go.
Yeah, that you like that bar, dude? That's. I shouldn't have said it online. Now people are gonna go. They play jazz there, and it's like, dude, it's a dive bar. I think I took you there once when we were in Dumbo. We went to Grimaldi's.
Stinks and everything.
Oh, it's that bar. Swanky, man. I love that place. But you go to corner bar, so they can find you. That's your local hangout.
No, of course on the Instagram and.
You're on Instagram?
Google my name.
Okay.
I am. I don't really use it that much, but I am there.
Oh, I'm gonna follow you, man.
All right.
I kind of have not. I abandoned Facebook, and I'm not really actively having an online presence because I don't know.
Yeah.
I just realized I don't want it, but it's I'm still part of this world. So LinkedIn is probably the easiest thing. Get my email and everything. It's just my name and last name @gmail.com. So
I looked you up on LinkedIn before this.
Nice. Although it has not been updated in probably 5 years, but it's still there. And what else? Email. I still have a website that is just more like a landing page than anything else.
What is it?
And a website.
Yeah, what's the website?
Oh, just my name and last name.com.
Okay.
www.giorgioguidi.com.
We'll drop it in the notes.
In the show notes,
absolutely. And email probably is the easiest thing for me.
Okay, perfect, man. And where can the people find you, my man?
You can find me at Rizzo Feels on the platforms you trust.
Yes, and you can find me at judaclan.com. And until next week.
Wait. You just slipped that in? You dropped a new website?
I mean, you got a website. Everybody's got one. You got to have one.
judaclan.com.
Yeah. Got to have one. Man. It's just all my links, basically. But
spread the word. We got you guys.
Yeah. Hey, man. Well, thank you so much for being on Side by Side. Thanks for tuning in today. Until next week when we're Side by Side.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.